If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Kath Bequee, a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of three. Inside my online program, Fitness Mama, I just love helping support women to care for their bodies during pregnancy, prepare their bodies for birth, and support their after-birth recovery, helping them feel confident and strong inside out during this important stage of their lives. In this podcast, join me each week as we dive into all things pregnancy care, childbirth, and postnatal recovery, helping you through every step of the journey. It is absolutely possible to feel amazing and confident in our bodies during this motherhood journey, and I want that for you. Come and say hi to me on Instagram at @fitnessmama, and let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. Today we are chatting with a lovely mum inside Fitness Mama. Her name's Terrie and she lives in rural central North Queensland area with her husband and baby boy Henry. So her baby is a few months old now and Terrie shares her birth story. She discusses her experience with a rural and regional hospital setting. She discusses how she planned for a home birth and why she planned for a home birth, but how she ended up having a hospital induction. And in Terrie's words, she had sideways steps in her birth plan, but it was a magical birth in the end. So I trust you're going to enjoy listening to Terrie's experience. Before I do dive into this episode, if perhaps you live rurally or regionally and you're having difficulty accessing a physio or quality workouts and support, then come and join us for a free 7-day trial. If you'd like support to help reclaim your pelvic floor and core and strength safely, then all of this is available with Fitness Mama. So join us for a free 7-day trial for these short, easy workouts that you can do from the comfort of your home whilst your bubba kicks around on the mat next to you, whilst your toddler runs around, or at the end of a long day at work. Just head to fitnessmama.com. Right, let's dive into this episode. Terrie, thank you so much for joining me on the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast.
Happy to be here.
It's lovely. We've got Henry with us. So if you're listening today and you hear some little baby sounds, that's who it is. Now, how old is Henry?
He's be 6 months in a couple of days.
And thank you for offering to come and share your story as well. It's always an honour to be able to chat to anyone about their journey, because it's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is.
So let's start at the start with you. You're based in rural, where was it? Rural Victoria.
No,
Queensland.
We're in Queensland, yeah. We're about an hour north of Mackay. So we're kind of in between Prossie and Mackay. And
yeah, right. And tell us about the start of your pregnancy journey.
I'm a little bit of an older mum. So I'm 37, well 36 when I was pregnant. And I'd been thinking about it for years and never really got up the courage to actually tell my husband that I wanted to be a mum. And so on our anniversary one year, a couple of years ago, I kind of hit him with it and knocked him for socks. We'd been together, I think it was about 16 years at that time. Yeah, then one of his boxes that needed to be ticked was we needed to have land, and because he never wanted to bring Henry up in the suburbs in town, he wanted to have more of a country lifestyle, and like he did, and I was keen for that as well. So we found our block, and then we didn't start trying until we had the block, and that was a bit of a whirlwind, and it took us about 8 months to fall pregnant between he works away and trying to time it right with ovulation and things like that. And so
that's a really interesting story. So had you not discussed children for 16 years?
We kind of had, and I didn't have the best childhood, so I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself and kind of didn't really value myself and the things that I wanted. And my mum was not the best mum. And one of my biggest fears was that I was going to be like her. So it was and then I went through a big change over a few years, just looking after my health and doing a lot of reflection and things. And I changed a lot in my confidence and how I valued myself. And it was I'd kind of felt like he'd always said he didn't want to be a dad. And I said, and so I'd kind of just accepted that maybe that was the best for us with all of those like previous experiences I'd had. And then it kind of, that voice just never went away. And I just one day said, this is really what I want. And I've been thinking about it for years. I've just never actually had the balls to say, you deserve what you want and you don't have to give up the things that you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd been thinking about it yourself for a few years.
Yeah.
And is that when you started to, I guess, delve into your own story a little bit? And
not really. I'd always thought about it, but I'd kind of just brushed it aside as, one day maybe if the stars align and just like if it's meant to be, it'll be kind of thing. And then it was only I'd had a health thing come up, and so I got a bit of a kick up the backside to take my health seriously. And so I actually joined a program randomly at night called Inspired Mama. And through joining that program, part of that is a lot of gratitude and a lot of internal work as well as like health and physical work. And it was through that internal work that I built my self-esteem, my confidence, and started to value myself and my own needs and wants more than I ever had before. So, yeah, that kind of changed me as a person, I guess, in that side of things, my confidence and whatnot. So it was only then that I was like, you need to ask for the things that you want and you desire. You don't have to give them up just because you think someone else doesn't want them.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. So you decide, you get your house, you decide to give it a crack, and 8 months in, you became pregnant. How were those 8 months of trying?
We both kind of accepted we never wanted to do any testing on either part if things were not working. We kind of just said if it's meant to be, it'll be. And I was on like prenatal vitamins and I took my health pretty seriously anyway. And then towards the end, I kind of said, well, we'll take them like these next 2 packs of prenatals. And if it hasn't happened, then we won't stop trying, but I'm not going to bother just keeping on like spending the money just for no reason. And then the next month, I actually went and visited my husband at work because our power was going to be out for the next day because they were doing electrical work. And that's where we conceived.
At his workplace?
Yeah, so I just stayed in the motel. Like he was on day shift. We just went up for the night and we stayed in the motel and conceived in good old Collinsville.
I thought you were going to say at work, and I was like, oh, that's a whole new story.
No, just in the motel at night.
Yeah. So amazing. So you became pregnant. Now, being rural Queensland, what happens when you become pregnant? Do you have a GP that's close by that you can see? Yep.
Yeah, so our GP's in Mackay, so that's about an hour out because we used to live a lot closer to town. It was only when we bought the property we're a bit further out now. And so I booked in and I actually wasn't very happy with the first. It was at my doctor was on maternity leave. And so I just went to the women's specialist and she was very clinical, I suppose. I'd kind of shared that, I hadn't told anyone because what if, we were to lose and stuff. And she's like, oh, well, you are 36 was her comment. And I was like, I didn't really think about it at the time. And then afterwards I was like, it's really harsh. But everyone else there was amazing. And I only went in because I knew before we were pregnant that I wanted to have a home birth. And so I had a midwife picked out for that and everything. So I just needed a referral from her to give to the midwife so that I could do that. And so she still gave me all that and gave me all the things that I'd needed. So
Yeah. And at what stage had you decided you wanted a home birth?
Oh, so I decided that like months before we even conceived. I just didn't see myself. I was a very yes kind of person, especially when there was like authorities around, and I didn't feel like my voice would be listened to in the hospital system, and I felt like I would just be pushed into things that I didn't really necessarily believe in or want to do because I'm just a little bit too much of a people pleaser.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your closest hospital to home, like it's an hour for Mackay?
Yes. So there is a hospital at Cross Point, which is 40 minutes, and then there's the bigger hospital is an hour to Mackay. Yeah.
Okay. So, and how was your pregnancy? Once you'd seen your doctor, how did the pregnancy progress?
I had an easy pregnancy. Like I was still like slashing paddocks at 39 weeks pregnant. Not like it was shorter stints, not necessarily long stints, but yeah, I was still like on the tractor doing everything and
yeah. Amazing. So you've got a full. What do you farm? What's your what sort of farm is it?
We're not farming anything at the moment. The aim is to do cattle, but we the property we bought was very let go. So it was like full of like lantana and weeds like as tall as us. So at the moment we're fixing fences and clearing the paddock, and it doesn't have a house per se. It's had a little shack which we had to completely renovate and close in and everything as well. So we finished that when I think it was about 5 months pregnant. We finished renovating that. So.
And at what stage of pregnancy, like you'd obviously had a pretty clear idea that you wanted to have a home birth before you were pregnant, but at what stage of pregnancy did you start to think a little bit more about the birth?
I was pretty sure I wanted to have a water birth, and I was pretty sure what I wanted to have. I'm very much a planner about what I wanted to have before we were even conceived. So I wanted a water birth and I wanted as little intervention as possible. And I'm not a big group kind of person, so I very much just wanted my husband there for the birth. And so I was pretty sure about what I wanted.
And how did you find out your information?
Podcasts, like just people sharing birth stories and things like that. I had the Pilates studio that I go to. They were at the local birth expo, and so I kind of went to that before I was pregnant, and so that was really helpful to know like a lot of the resources that were in my area as well. And that's how I learnt that we actually had a home birth system where we were, that was accessible in our area. And that's what kind of tweaked my thinking to be like that. That's the way I'd like to go.
Now, at what stage did you join Fitness Mama?
I think I was just past the first trimester. So
what made you?
I'd listened to the podcast already, and I knew it was something that, like, I have lots of friends that have had pelvic floor issues and bladder issues since having kids. So I was very aware of what could happen, and I wanted to do as much preventative stuff as I could. So I'd listened to your podcast before I was pregnant as well. And so I knew that was something that I wanted to utilise throughout my pregnancy.
Yeah. And you've been one of the star members, that your consistency and you just showing up and logging on and doing your workouts. So I do just have to say well done. Like you've been amazing throughout pregnancy and your recovery too.
I'll say I don't feel like I do it anywhere near as much as I should.
Everyone feels that. Okay, so you're 39 weeks. You're on the tractor.
Yeah.
You're getting out, just doing what needs to be done. At what stage did you start to think, okay, I'm in labour? What was happening?
So honestly, like I said, I'm very much a planner and a little bit of a control freak. So the day started, I hit 40 weeks and I was like still feeling amazing. Nothing was feeling like it was happening anytime soon. So I was like, I should start walking, and I was jokingly like walking around hills and stuff. And then the days start ticking by and everyone's messaging you, is the baby here yet? Surely the baby's here. And that just really hit hard because felt like my choices were being taken away from me. And so I was getting quite emotional and upset. And then I was like, I just need to, like, I stopped looking at my phone And then a friend of mine messaged my husband because they're like, we haven't heard from Terrie in a few days. Is she okay? And so she came and checked in on me. But the it was the Wednesday afternoon, I went for a 5-kilometre walk. So I was 41 and 5 days at this point. Still nothing had happened. And I was still having regular check-ins with my midwife, and Henry was happy as Larry in there. He was just comfy as can be. And I went for a 5-kilometre walk, and then the next day my husband was headed to town. So I was like, oh, I need to get my mind off things. I'll just go to town with you. And I went to pee before we went to town, and I'd lost my my mucus plug. And I was like, oh, this is good. And then we got home, and I was like, well, a 5-kilometre walk worked yesterday. Let's go for another one today. And I went for a walk, and then on my way home from the walk, I'd stopped and chatted to an old man that's like at the local campground, and then I walked a little bit further and my waters broke. And so I tried to walk a little bit further, but I still had 2 kilometres to get home. And I was like, it's just leaking and I have to walk past a campground. So I rang my husband to come pick me up, and he came and picked me up in the buggy. And I rang my midwife, and she said, well, this is like all your options and where you're at and, percentages of what happens, like what the likelihood of the different, like when I was going to go into labour. She's like, get some rest, and asked what the colour of my waters was like and everything. And everything was clear and perfect. So she's like, get some rest. And so I tried to go to bed early, and I struggled to get to sleep. And so I ended up getting up, and then I went back to bed later and woke up in the morning, nothing had happened. And then she checked in on me again the next day, and then he was still quite happy in there. And I had offered monitoring and things if I wanted to go into the hospital, but I was like, oh, I feel okay at the moment. I'm just trusting that everything's all right. And then we went to bed the next night and nothing happened. And then the next day I was getting quite worked up, I guess, by this point, and my friend dropped in and saw me. And the midwife was at the expo again that day, actually, and she popped back in on the way through and checked on Henry, and then on the way home, and we decided to go in for monitoring to the closer hospital, so the Prossie Hospital. And we went in, and like she had given me all the research and reading about all the risks and different things and where I was sitting in terms of my dates and with my waters being broken and things like that. And the whole time we were monitoring my temperature and blood pressure and all that kind of stuff to see whether just there were any signs of infection and stuff, which there wasn't. And my waters were still clear, and so that was all perfect. And then so we went into the hospital and they put me on for monitoring, and I was contracting. So I was contracting 2 in 10 minutes. I was chatting through them, and I'd been feeling that for days, but I just kind of hadn't put 2 and 2 together that they were actually contractions, because it just was not like I could still chat the whole way through it. You could feel it, but it was nothing. And he was happy as, and got in the car to head home, and my husband went into the servo to look for something, and when he got back to the car, I was in full-blown labour. So I couldn't talk through any of my contractions. So we still had like a 40-minute drive to get home, and so, yeah, I laboured all night. He went to sleep. We hooked the TENS machine up to me, and I laid on the couch and tried to get some sleep, but that wasn't really happening. And I woke him up at 11:30 at night just because I wanted a little bit more support. And I was like, they were lasting at least a minute each contraction, and they were like, 3 to 5 contractions every 10 minutes kind of thing. And so they were pretty frequent and intense. And about half an hour before John rang the midwife, they kind of just slowed just before sunup. But they were still really strong all day and all through my back and all through my front. So in the end, that afternoon, like I couldn't sleep because they were so painful and still so frequent that it got to, I think, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My husband had been talking to the midwife the whole time, and they were thinking he might have been posterior and tried to get me to do some stretches and things, but I just couldn't. It was just too painful trying to get through them. And I said to my husband, I said, I know it's, and I wasn't asking for it, but I said, I know it's not the right headspace, but I'm at the point, just take me in and cut him out. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And
can I just check, Terrie? So this is, you'd gotten home from the hospital at what time? This episode is brought to you by Baby Bee, Australian-owned and designed prams combining quality, safety and style. Not only does Baby Bee let you try their prams at home with free returns for 9 months. Yes, that's 9 months. They also offer an industry-leading 3-year warranty for total peace of mind. With thousands of 5-star reviews, around-the-clock customer care, and up to $300 of free accessories with every pram, what are you waiting for? Go visit www.babybeeonline.com and check them out for yourself. And yes, for listeners of the podcast, there is a 20% discount code. Enter FITBEE, FITBEE 20 at checkout, and T's and C's apply.
So that was probably 6:30, 7 o'clock at night.
Okay. And then you woke your husband up at 11:30 at night. And then what stage did you think, I've had enough?
Mid-afternoon the next day.
So you had been in labour for 3 days, was it?
Yeah, so active labour started 3 days in, and then this is, another almost 24 hours later from active labour.
Wow. And had you had sleep the previous 2 before it really went full-blown into labour?
I'd slept both those nights. So I'd slept the first 2 nights, no worries. But, I'd been up for a while.
But either way, you would have been exhausted.
Yeah, so, a little bit. And, a little bit. So, and that's where I was at. Like, I was, hanging off my husband's neck, through every contraction, just breathing through it. He always says I'm such a sook when it comes to pain. Yeah, he definitely sees that differently after seeing what I was willing to go through. Yes, the midwife rang and she's like, we really need to be thinking about next steps now. The decision's yours, but where are we at? And I said, nah, I'm happy to go in. I can't do this anymore. So we went in and I was dehydrated, and so she comes with us still, but she's just not the operating midwife. You still are through the hospital midwives because she doesn't have operating rights in the hospital system. We get there and, they gave me fluids and antibiotics because my waters had been broken so long. And so I get constant monitoring as well. And they did a bedside ultrasound, and his head was so far down my pelvis that they could only see half his head. So he was all but out, but he just was holding on that last little bit. And, they were amazing there because I was specific about what I wanted, and my husband knew what I wanted, and Clarice knew what I wanted, who was my midwife, and they'd wanted to do cervical exams and things, and I didn't want to. And the hospital said, listen, if we can check the colour of your waters and that's good, then that's fine. And so they did that, and it was all sweet, so everything was perfect. And she was like, listen, I know, you wanted a home birth, so if all your pain options are here, but we won't offer them to you, but if you want anything, just ask for it and it's there for you. So I felt that was really good because they weren't pushing anything on me and they weren't asking and putting it in my head. And I wasn't allowed in the water because my waters had broken, but I was allowed in the shower. So I was happy with that. And the hospital water's not hot enough anyway.
And was there anything else? Was there anything else that you did to help, I guess, make the environment more like home?
I was at the point I really couldn't care less. At home, I had it all set up, and then there it was all that just went out the window, and nothing fazed me. I really couldn't care less about it. I wanted they were like, move around as much as you want. And so I did that. And yeah, I jumped in the shower, which is a mission in itself, trying to take your clothes off while you're hooked up to all your IV IV stick in the shower. But anyway, you live and learn. And when I was in the shower, my waters had changed and I did have meconium in my waters at that point. So they'd been clear up until then. I don't know whether it was just timing or whether this, because we had started the induction then, so I was on low dose Syntocin. I don't know whether it was that stress or just timing that happened, but it is what it is. I'm not fazed by it. Then, yeah, in the shower, my body just started pushing. I scared the living daylights out of me, to be honest, because I was like, I have no control over my body. And it just started pushing and my eyes went bright and my husband was like, what happened? And so we tried a few different positions in the end and was here and there. And then in the end, I just knelt on the end of the bed and I only I let him push his way out. I never consciously pushed at all. And yeah, I held onto my husband's neck and there was a mirror behind so that he could watch Henry come out. And so then, yeah, just slow and steady. And it was about 4.5 hours after they started the induction, he was out. So really it was not the plan of a home birth, but it's as close to a home birth you can get in a hospital system. So I still saw everything as like a magical experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely to hear.
He did not stop pooing the whole way out, though. So it's like he'd held on to the last minute and I was covered, he was covered. He came up on my chest, but he had his nose was flaring. So the midwives had picked up that he just wasn't getting enough oxygen in, which we would never have noticed that. It was so faint that they noticed, and he was still attached to the placenta at that point, and they tried to get me to push it out, but it just wasn't coming, and he had to go on the CPAP. So they asked to cut the cord, and I said, can I just come over to the table with him, still attached? And they're like, yeah, no worries. And so that was fun because my cord was slightly shorter, so I was kind of on tiptoes trying to not overstretch the cord and still him get what he needed. But then the cord was all white by then, and so we ended up cutting the cord. But yeah, so he ended up in special care. It's only in there for on the CPAP, I think, for about 6 to 8 hours, and then they weaned him off that, and then weaned him off the sugars. And yeah, he was in hospital for 5 days. So.
And I know hindsight's a lovely thing, but knowing what you know now, that with the care that Henry needed after the birth, are you glad you gave birth in the hospital, or like has that changed your opinion of the home birth?
If we went back, I would still go the home birth option, but I can't fault any of the care that I received from anyone in nursery and the midwives. But I think it's like people in general, like you're not going to get along with everyone. Not everyone's going to like me and my personality. I'm not going to like everyone and everyone else's personality. So you're always going to have those clashes. And I was just lucky I had the team that fit me best on the night. And I definitely think we're in the right place for what happened. So, yeah, I'm quite at peace with everything, really. Yeah,
that's great. And with the birth, there was no forceps or vacuum or episiotomy, no any tearing?
Yeah, I had some grazing and a grade 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like they were a bit stitch happy, but they stitched everything. And I ended up having to have a catheter in because there was a little graze near my urethra and they wanted to just make sure they stitched the right thing. That was probably the worst part of it, having the catheter of everything. Those things are horrible.
Okay.
I was pretty keen to get it out.
And when did it come out?
A day later. I kept asking. I was like, can we get it out now? Can we get it out now? But no.
And how was the recovery with the stitches?
Yeah, fine. I didn't find it was too uncomfortable or anything really. It's been still, because of the scar tissue there, I'm probably not as, there's no problems. I'm not as good as I should with the massage, with the scar massage, and definitely getting back into intimacy has been uncomfortable. Okay. It always gets better. It's just that initial initial sensitivity and I guess the stretching of that area now.
Mm.
It's going to take some time.
Have you watched that section inside the app, Fitness Mama app?
No, I haven't actually.
I'll send you the link. So for anyone listening, we do have a video. It's just got some little tips about sex after birth and intimacy after birth, where we discuss causes of discomfort and ways to help manage discomfort and treatment and that sort of thing. So and have a chat. You've chatted to your doctor about that as well?
Oh, well, I I haven't been back to the physio actually, but I had worked with a women's health physio during my pregnancy, and then I had a checkup at 6 weeks afterwards. And then because my pelvic floor was so weak because of obviously the prolonged labour and things, and Henry's hand was near his face when he came out too, which probably didn't help things. Then we went, and then I went back. She put me on light duties for another 6 weeks with a program, and then I went back at 12 weeks, and everything was kind of back where it needed to be and things in terms of my pelvic floor. So
yeah, great. And how's motherhood? How's life on a rural property in Queensland with a little baby? Busy, active?
Yeah, I did early childhood for 16 years before I had kids. So much harder than I ever anticipated. I knew it was going to be hard. And he's definitely, I love him to bits, but he's not an easy baby. He's had amazing, he's known how to breastfeed from day dot, never needed any help with that. But he's had a few intolerances and things. And I think the fact that he was on antibiotics for 5 days and I was on antibiotics for 5 days has definitely impacted his little gut, and it's just going to take some time to heal it all up and get it to where we want it to be. And so just those, things that you deal with intolerance, food intolerances and things through your milk comes with its challenges and whatnot. But certainly going to keep me on my toes.
He's been throughout the whole talk today. He just hasn't stopped moving. You've done an incredible job. You're still talking normally, even though you've been so busy. It's like a multitasking right here.
I don't know if you can see him, but he's constantly grinning at the screen.
And grabbing at your microphone too.
Yeah. Well, I normally don't use these ones. I only ever use when I talk to, because when his dad's away, he rings us every night. I have Bluetooth headphones that I use, so he's never used to having strings down
with the cord. So Terrie, for anyone listening today who's perhaps pregnant, about to have a baby, being a new mum, do you have any bits of advice or words of wisdom for someone who's just been through it all?
No matter how good you feel in those first 6 weeks, rest. Don't get up and do everything just because you think you can.
Love it.
I felt amazing. And I lifted, my mother-in-law came up to help us, and she brought honey up for us that we'd ordered, and I was lifting a 10-kilo bucket of honey when we first got home. So that was probably a week and a half post birth, and she had a go at me, and I was now after I went back and I had so many issues with my weak pelvic floor, I tell everyone now, rest. Doesn't matter how good you feel, rest. You don't know what's going on down there.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Terrie, thank you so much for the chat. Thank you for sharing your journey. You know what? You wanted to be a home birth. It ended up still being a magical experience in hospital. You've got a gorgeous little active baby Henry there who hopefully will have a nice sleep for you now. Thank you.
No worries at all. Thank you.
And before I sign off, remember my team and I will be putting together the show notes for this episode with all the links at fitnessmama.com/podcast. And if you would like to join us for 7-day trial of convenient quality short workouts that you can do from the comfort of your home during pregnancy and postpartum, then head to fitnessmama.com. Have a fabulous day, everyone, and I look forward to you joining me very soon for another episode of the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Mama podcast, brought to you by the Fitness Mama freebies found at www.fitnessmama.com/free. So please take a few seconds to leave a review, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to take a screenshot of this podcast, upload it to your social media, and tag me at FitnessMama so I can give you a shout out too. Until next time, remember, an active pregnancy, confident childbirth, and strong postnatal recovery is something that you deserve. Remember our disclaimer, materials and contents in this podcast are intended as general information only and shouldn't substitute any medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. I'll see you soon.